Death is a certainty for all of us. But while some believe everything ends the moment you stop breathing, others see death as something else. Something that only truly happens the last time someone says your name. But why the hell am I talking about death in an innocent video about Tondela? Well, first off, it's kind of hard to ignore what's constantly happening around you. And second, because death doesn't always have to be interpreted literally or objectively. Some time ago, I did a deep dive on Naval Primeira Maio, a club that, while recognized by anyone who followed Portuguese football in the 2000s, will most likely die with us, because it never managed to build a legacy beyond a few mediocre seasons in the top flight. But the team I'm about to show you today, it's the complete opposite and the exact same thing at the same time. In this video, I'm going to tell you the fantastic rise of CD Tondela, the crazy end-of-season runs that made them legendary, and why, unlike Naval, Tondela will be remembered long after you and I are gone. But first, and as usual, let me give you some context. Clube Desportivo de Tondela was founded in 1933, born from the merger of the town's two main clubs, Tondela Football Club and Operário Athletic Club, who decided to join forces for the greater good of the region. And that's always been the spirit of Tondela. Long before the Febre Amarela Ultras came into the picture, there was already a strong sense of community around the club, even when it was stuck in the lower leagues. The very man who gives the current stadium its name, João Cardoso, was a wealthy farmer who helped the entire Tondela region, whether through funding cultural associations, sports initiatives, or helping the less fortunate. One of his selfless acts was donating the land where Tondela Stadium now stands, and to this day, more than 75 years after his death, the club and the region still honor him. But João Cardoso wasn't Nasser Al-Khelaifi. He couldn't catapult Tondela from the local leagues to the top tier overnight. After his death, Tondela kept evolving, but they were stuck in limbo. Just a yo-yo team bouncing between district leagues and the lower national divisions. That would last almost 50 years, until 2009 when they finally got promoted to the 3rd division. And it was at that point that Tondela's most epic saga began. It only took 3 more years to move up again, this time to the 2nd tier, and just 3 more years after that, they finally reached the Primeira Liga. Of course, that promotion already gave us a taste of the drama this club was about to bring. Even though they had promotion in the bag, they nearly threw it all away in the final rounds. Going to the final match day, they were top of the table, but with just a minute left in stoppage time, they were losing away to Friamundo and sitting in 4th place. Then, in a moment of magic, André Carvalho scored the perfect free kick and sealed the historic promotion for the Beirões. It was done. But rubbing shoulders with the Giants wasn't gonna be easy. Tondela had never been in this position, and yeah, it quickly became clear that the Primeira Liga was a bit too much for their wagon to carry. They fought bravely against Sporting in their debut. The Lions only sealed a win deep into stoppage time, but after that, it was all downhill. From August to March, Tondela managed just 3 wins. At one point, they were 11 points away from safety. It all looked doomed, until one game, out of nowhere, changed everything. Luis Alberto scored an absolute screamer. He froze the Dragão and breathed life into a dying Tondela. This was the biggest win in the club's history. I mean, beating Porto at the Dragão? Sure, Porto weren't at their best, but that was still a Herculean feat, one that inspired the Beirões to believe. If we can beat one of the big boys, then we can beat the rest too. And maybe, just maybe with a little luck, they could pull off the impossible. Match after match, always with a knife at their throat, Tondela started racking up wins. Like a well-oiled machine that had been ready since day one. It was impossible not to root for them. 2016 was the year of the underdog. There was something in the air you couldn't quite explain. Leicester winning the Premier League, the Cavs winning the league by beating Curry's Warriors, one of the most powerful NBA teams ever, Portugal and Wales at the Euros later that summer, young nerdy throne finally getting some... anyway, after 40 days of almost perfect football, Tondela reached the final round. They weren't in control of their fate, but they had an unshakable will and soul. Even though they did their job, at halftime they were still mathematically relegated, since União da Madeira was winning their match against Rio Ave. But an old face in Portuguese football, the iconic Elder Postiga scored for Rio Ave and Tondela could finally breathe. It was the great escape of Portuguese football in the 21st century. Surely that will serve as a lesson on how to survive with a bit more comfort next season, right? Right? Yeah. Despite not being as dreadful as the year before, and helped by Arouca's absurd fall from grace, Tondela again went into the final match day in the danger zone. They had to beat Braga, and either Arouca or Moreirense had to lose. On paper, Arouca had the best shot at staying up, but they lost. Moreirense shockingly beat Porto, and Tondela, in full Super Saiyan mode, beat Braga. They did it again. It was unbelievable. How the fuck can a team pull off something like this? Not once, but twice. And no, before you ask, in 2017 they didn't barely escape again. They also didn't go down. Sorry to disappoint, but it didn't happen. But you bet your sorry ass that in 2019, Tondela was back at it like a crack addict. Once again, they could have been relegated before the last match day, but it's like fate had a soft spot for them. Chaves had everything in their hands to guarantee survival the week before against Setúbal and Sing Tondela, but they didn't. So, in a do-or-die final game between both teams, Tondela, as always, didn't flinch. The year after, same story. Massive mid-season collapse, then a magical recovery just 2 games from the end. At this point, it wasn't a trilogy, it was a goddamn saga, dragging across 2 different decades, but as with all things in life, every story must come to an end. 2020-2021 was a rare season. In 6 years in the Primeira Liga, it was only the second time they reached the final match day already safe. Much of that was thanks to Paco Ayestaran, now Unai Emery's assistant at Aston Villa. But the next year, despite Paco leading them to the first ever Taça de Portugal final and keeping them in the survival race, the club fired them 6 matches from the end. It looked like they shot themselves in the foot. After so many miraculous comebacks, we all believed Tondela would find a way. Well, not this time. Luck completely abandoned them. In those final weeks, everything went wrong. Comebacks against them, a last-minute goal that stole 2 points, and a red card that ruined their decisive game. In the end, they just failed to do their part. Even if they had, it wouldn't have been enough. Arouca won their final game. But you know what's the most ironic part? Tondela could have still made the playoff spot, and had a chance to fight for survival later on. They were in that spot until the 86th minute, when G equalized for Boa Vista. And guess who was sitting on Boa Vista's bench? Petit, the same coach who pulled off that first legendary impossible comeback in Tondela's debut season. And now, he was the executioner, dropping the guillotine on the Beirões. The dream was over. 2 impossible cup finals followed, and yeah, they ended as expected. It was time to snap back to reality. In practice, Tondela and Naval Primeira Maio had almost identical journeys. Naval went up in 2005, Tondela in 2015. Neither had top flight experience. They had similar club colors, neither had a particularly great campaign, and they both went down after a short stay. Naval in 2011, Tondela in 2022. But Throne, if they're so similar, why is the message in the Naval video the complete opposite of this Tondela story? Because while they're statistically alike, emotionally they couldn't be more different. Tondela left a real mark on the region. They brought people together. Naval sank because no one gave a damn. And even though Tondela's campaigns were a mess, they were unforgettable. Because of the fight, the belief, the madness. Naval, despite getting promoted this year, went from the district leagues to the 4th tier with 0 guarantees of sustainability. Tondela, on the other hand, is still very much Tondela, on the verge of rising from the ashes, but of course, nothing's guaranteed and there's going to be drama on the final match day. They could have already sealed promotion. Just this past weekend they moved the whole crowd to the Estádio João Cardoso, but the Beira side dropped points in recent rounds and now they'll have to fight for direct promotion this Friday. Regardless of what happens, the point is, Tondela made an impact on millions of people. Fans of Portuguese football will always know Tondela is, and nothing stopping you from doing something with your life that will make many people remember you long after you're gone. You're the only one responsible for your own legacy, whether it's good, bad, or completely irrelevant. And yeah, I know this might sound cheesy, but before you leave the house, before you open your computer, think about what you used to dream of when you were younger. And when the excuses start creeping in, just remember, maybe it's not in your hands to be a Benfica or a Porto, but you can choose between being a Tondela or a Naval. Thanks for attending my TED Talk. If you enjoy videos like this, help me reach 10,000 subs by subscribing to Thorn FC. I post videos like this twice a week, and trust me, you don't want to miss what I've got planned. But before you go, since you watched this Tondela video, you have to check out the one about Naval. It's a bit more depressing, but 100% worth your time. I'll see you there.